Hello, everyone. We are live from the attic. Welcome to the live stream. Today is June the 26th of 2022, and you are watching the Piedmont Trails channel. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to the live stream tonight. Tonight's topic is about the Great Wagon Road. I'm going to be sharing updates from the project, and I'm going to share a little bit of discrepancies that we have proven incorrectly over the Great Wagon Road, and share a little bit of brief history. But the most important thing is I'm going to share some techniques that you can use to verify if your ancestor traveled the Great Wagon Road. They may have traveled other roads, but I'm going to share with you some techniques that I have used all through the years and proven so many families who actually did travel the Great Wagon Road. And I was able to use the same techniques and prove that they traveled other roads. So, thank you so much for joining me. I want you to join in with the conversation tonight and say hi to me. My name is Carol. So, hello, everyone. Say hi to me. Let me know where you're from. Let me share some experiences that you have been through your journey to the past and share them with me. There was someone that had remarked a comment on a previous video saying that hi and didn't introduce themselves. They just said, Hi, I'm interested in learning more about the slaves who took the Martin surname in Rockingham County. And um, there is so much that is involved in just that little bitty question that what they're inquiring about. But share with me your journey and let me try and help you put you in the right direction to where some of the records may be. That's the whole point of me even creating Piedmont Trails, sharing my personal journey, and then helping you along the way. And I do this freely, I do this voluntarily. I have a regular life, but I do this as a personal passion for history and genealogy that I want to inspire in everyone because it's that important to me. So, I've got Rick on here. Good evening. Excited to hear you tonight. So excited to have you with us tonight, Rick. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, I'm going to get started. You guys don't be shy now and put in your comments, your questions, and tell, hey, if I say something that you may think is incorrect, let me know. Put in your suggestions, put down your opinions, and let me know. This is a live stream conversation, and we all learn as we go. No one is pretending here tonight to be an expert on anything. We all learn through experiences, through research and study, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. I mean, seriously, that is what makes it all worthwhile. All right, I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna give a. There's a few things that needs to be corrected about the Great Wagon Road, and that is even on Piedmont Trails on the website. If you've not been on the website, go to piedmonttrails.com and you can learn all about what we are all about. For those of you who are not aware of the basic route of the Great Wagon Road, I'm just going to quickly stream through this. I mean, I'm really going to go through it quick. And I didn't want to leave this out because there may be people who are joining us this evening who are not aware of the basic route. But I'm going to go through this very quickly. After that, then I'm going to share updates from the project regarding our present work. And then after the updates, I'm going to share researching techniques to help you determine when your ancestors traveled, which route they took, and who they traveled with. Remember, these families during the mid to the late 18th century always traveled together. They traveled in groups, so they never traveled alone. That was very rare. All right, on the Piedmont Trails website, approximately 4 articles were published back in 2018. That was about 4 years ago. And it gave vivid and, at the time, accurate details how the Great Wagon Road basically traveled from Pennsylvania to Georgia, covering over 800 miles distance. Now, I'm sure you all realize as the project continues with research, and I'm talking about the Great Wagon Road project that's been going on now for a little over 3 years. Um, as it continues with research, the exact details of the original route, that's a key word here, original route, will vary from mile to mile over approximately 800 miles. Okay, now here I'm going to go through the basic route really quick. The basic route originates in Lancaster, Pennsylvania by crossing the Conestoga River. The actual ford crossing is located near the present-day bridge on State Highway 340. 340 is also known as the Old Philadelphia Pike Road. During the late 18th century, portions of the road were actually paved with stones, and not only in that location, and it was paved with stones until it reached the Susquehanna River ferry crossing, which was located near the bridge on State Highway 462. Traveling from Columbia to Wright's Ferry and Wrightsville, and then reaching York and crossing the Cordova Creek. From York, the travelers reached a junction in the road about 5 miles or so, 5 or 6 miles south of York. Today, this intersection is marked at Highway 462 and Highway 116. The updated route traveled through Black Gap towards Winchester, Virginia. They would have traveled through Hanover, Pennsylvania before heading into the wilderness for about 9, 10, 11, 13 miles or so, crossing over the Maryland border and arriving in present-day Taneytown. They crossed Big Pipe Creek and the Monocacy River along State Highway 194, and that's Maryland State Highway 194. They next arrived at Frederick and the Pack Horse Ford. That's along the Potomac River. They reached Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and then began through Vestal's Gap, that is known today as Keys Gap, and Williams Gap, which is known today as Snickers Gap, just spelled just like the candy bar, Snickers Gap. The next destination is Fredericktown, that is known as Winchester today. Basically, from Winchester, it followed the ridge lines to reach the Big Lick, which that is known as Roanoke, Virginia, and then from Roanoke, Virginia to North Carolina, and then to the Yadkin River. That gives you a basic step-by-step outline of how the Great Wagon Road traveled during the year 1750. That gives you a basic outline. What we do is we take those individual pinpoints and we really dig deep into those records at that particular pinpoint. And we've been doing this now for a little over 3 years. Bill says, familiar with great road remnants in Concord and Kannapolis. Okay, I'm going to get into that because we've got some updates about that area. All right, here we go. The Virginia and North Carolina area is where the project has concentrated its efforts on during the past year. A whole lot. We have really been digging deep through Horse Pasture Creek, coming from that way over towards the Mayor River and coming into Rockingham-Stokes County line and traveling down from that area into present-day Stokes, Forsyth County, and then digging deeper into Guilford County and Davidson County. And we have found a lot of discrepancies among the truths. Okay, so here we go. And it's important that you distinguish this as you go, because otherwise, if you don't distinguish which is false and which is true, then you will just keep continuously traveling down this false path, and it's not going to lead you to anywhere. You're not going to get the answers in which you seek. Okay. Don't let me get rambling on, you guys. Kind of stop me and tell me, hey, get back on focus. All right, so the Virginia, North Carolina areas where the project has concentrated its efforts on during the past year, the evidence has produced large discrepancies from modern day theories versus the facts. Some of these we can share from the project. We can share them openly. And there are a few others that we need to kind of remain intact with us as we diligently concentrate on our goal to ensure success with the project. But in other words, some material that is currently sensitive, we are unable to share at this particular point. But I encourage every one of you to follow the Great Wagon Road Project, become more involved, learn more about what we do and how we come about the evidence and the documents. And we will release all of the historical documents and proofs and facts that we have found through the Great Wagon Road Project. Once the project is all complete, we will be releasing all of that data. There have been a huge amount of change in developments over there. And this what we will release concerning on some of the aspects of what we've been researching in the past year will change history. Literally, it will change history. The change is it's amazing of the evidence that we have found. All right, now I'm going to read some discrepancies that were posted by who else but Piedmont Trails. All right, now I'm getting back to these articles that are actually on the website that were published in 2018. Now, at the time, during that particular time, this was considered as the Great Wagon Road. There were several historical organizations who proclaimed this and said they had evidence that this was the actual route. But let me read this. There was a newspaper article that this is actually from the article of the detailed route of the Great Wagon Road on PiedmontTrails.com. A newspaper article was written in 2013 by the Winston-Salem Journal detailing the route of the road through the Rural Hall area, present-day Forsyth County, North Carolina. This area is approximately 30 miles south of Pilot Mountain. You North Carolina residents, people who live in, you know where Pilot Mountain is. You probably know where Rural Hall is. If you not, ask me. I'll give you more details. The link to the article can be found, and I actually include a link on that article for that newspaper article. Depression of the actual roadbed were located along Cordell Drive and Highway 66. That's in Forsyth County. It's near present-day Rural Hall. According to the Moravian diaries, this has been proven to be true as the Moravians were making their way to the settlement of Tavern, which lies just south of Rural Hall. We know that the Moravians left the road and traveled a few miles south in order to locate a building which was already on the property that they had just purchased in 1753. This was the site of Bethabara. Bethania was established on the Pennsylvania Road, according to the journals of the Moravians. This means that Highway 67 and Bethania to Vacaville Road both cross over the original wagon road. It's not true. And the Great Wagon Road project has proved it without a doubt. The Great Wagon Road traveled always in a south to southwest position. It never at any time traveled west. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Well, we want to know, how did our ancestors get to Tennessee from Virginia? They had a junction in Roanoke where a separate road traveled due west from Roanoke, Virginia, and it took them straight to Tennessee along the New River. And there's documentation for that. For this particular section in which Piedmont Trails had printed back in 2018, at that time we believed it to be true. But the Moravians, and I'll get more into their diaries, they never proclaimed that this was the Great Wagon Road. And now, after much research over this past year, we've proven that this road that this article is talking about in Rural Hall, Highway 67, and Tobacco Bethania Road is a different road. And we know exactly when it came into existence and how it came into existence and where it went from point A to point B. It was not the Great Wagon Road. Okay, another discrepancy is from the same article. We know that the road turns west after leaving Bethania and prepares to cross the Yadkin River. We also know the location of the crossing was made in the Shallow Ford, which is located just southwest of present-day Louisville. The crossing was made here because the Yadkin River only averaged 18 inches in this one spot, unless the river was swollen due to recent rains or melting snows. It's not true. Okay. Shallow Ford Crossing. Shallow Ford Crossing is a very famous crossing on the Yadkin River. Another famous crossing is the Donahaw Crossing, which is actually located up a little bit north of Shallow Ford along Highway 67, the road I just mentioned before. The Shallow Ford Road did not come into existence until 1754. Okay, I'm going to keep it going. The Virginia North Carolina segments are the main updates from the project. The original route from the 1740 decade changes slightly during the 10 years from 1740 to 1750. In other words, the original route of the Great Wagon Road changed very, very slightly during those 10 years. But after 1750, going into 1760, it started really changing. It would change often. But from 1740 to 1750, it didn't. And then now you're going to say, well, Carol, did people actually travel on the Great Wagon Road in 1740? Yes. Yes. Yes, they did. All right. By 1752, new additional routes linked to the Great Wagon Road caused, due to many families, it caused many families to lose direction because there were so many other alternate routes. Say, for instance, in 1752, that were in some of these were made due to weather conditions, due to road conditions. Remember, the Great Wagon Road was one of the most horrible roads you could ever imagine traveling upon, especially with a loaded wagon. It was just horrible conditions. So this explains part of the reason why some of these so many alternate routes came into play. But at the same time, with these families taking upon themselves to travel these alternate routes, they would become lost. They would lose their direction. And this is exactly what happened to the Moravians more than once. More than once. And they admit that in their diaries. The one consistency with the Great Wagon Road was the direction in which it traveled, and that was in a constant south-southwesterly direction from Virginia. No doubt about that. The original route never traveled due west for any length of time, and it basically traveled parallel to the trader's path. Okay, Bill, I'm getting ready to get into your area here. This was also known as Thigpen's Trace. Now, if you guys have ever watched any of my previous videos where I've talked about the trader's path and what it was, and where it went, and how it came about. It was part of a military route from known as Thigpen's Trace during Queen Anne's War. And later it became a major trading route between the Native Americans and the traders who were coming back and forth from Virginia and traveling south from South Carolina, because North Carolina, remember, if you'll go back to my video about the trading years, remember North Carolina was behind in organizing trade with the Native Americans. Virginia and South Carolina were very well organized, and they used this trail. They used the trader's path. Now, as I say this about the trader's path, I know that by tomorrow, I know by tomorrow I'm going to receive a huge response from that last statement, that the trader's path is also known as Thigpen's Trace, and it was not the Great Wagon Road. But the goal of the project is to historically recognize the Great Wagon Road on a national scale and to preserve the truth of its origins and its original route. That's the goal of the project. Many people confuse the trader's path with the Great Wagon Road. These are two distinctive paths traveling to the same destination, and that's Salisbury, North Carolina. It is at this point that the two oldest roads in the Piedmont region of North Carolina, they merged together. And they merged together for a time as one road. This merging travels across South Carolina state line, where the two roads separate completely from one another. It is at this point that the Great Wagon Road and the Fall Line Road join together near Camden, South Carolina. The trader's path continues moving forward just like it always did, and it's traveling on a more southwesterly direction to the mid sections and eastern sections of Georgia. Thigpen's Trace, Thigpen, Thigpen's Trace, dated from Queen Anne's War. Its original route was destined for the Mississippi River, and it was an actual military route, and it stayed in existence from Queen Anne's War period to the 1750s, 1760s, 1770s, and in fact, even remnants of today can be found from the original trader's path. Now, if you can identify the timeline when your ancestor migrated, then you can pinpoint the roads they may have used. You got to find the timeline. But if you can find the timeline in which they traveled, then you can find out the route they used. You can locate records and documents along the way. I've done this, so I know that it can be done. These documents will prove which road they traveled. And when you think of what these documents are, you gotta think outside of the box a little bit. You can't just type it in on the keyboard and go online, especially Ancestry or any one of these other genealogy corporations, and expect to find your answers, because they're not going to be there. You've got to think more along ferry records, tavern ledgers, store ledgers. You've got to think more on that line, on a ground research. But you can prove which road that your ancestor took. There will be some evidence somewhere if you keep looking to find it. You cannot limit your research. You've got to find, if you want to find those details, you just can't limit the research. And like I said, you've got to go into ferry records, tavern ledgers, store ledgers, personal journals, and diaries, and much, much more on a ground level. Don't rely on other personal opinions without the proof. I'll say that again. And this includes me. Don't rely on other personal opinions without the proof. I can name several organizations who proclaim historical stories about local roads, people, and landmarks as fact when they are not. You need to stick to the facts that are proven with documentation. I want to say one note about diaries and journals. Manuscripts such as these are a personal point of view. And this is great if the person knows exactly where they are at that particular point. But I'm saying this because I'm using the Moravians as an example. The Moravians used local landmarks to identify where they were in their traveling diaries. And there are traveling diaries from the Great Wagon Road from the Moravians dated 1743. And they note landmarks in these traveling diaries. But the Moravians never, not once that I have ever found, proclaimed that they traveled the Great Wagon Road. Or they always continually traveled the Upper Road or the Carolina Road the whole entire time of their trip. They never once did that. Instead, they admitted that they took one path here, they took a turn here, they turned over here, and they joined the main path after asking for directions or speaking with someone at a local ordinary or an inn and getting directions, and then they joined the main path down here. They admit that. The Great Wagon Road Project has identified over 10 early roads dating prior to 1770 in Stokes County alone. We've done this during the past year. I'm going to go ahead and say it as a year. It's probably more like about 9-10 months, but it's very close to a year. And one of these is the oldest road, and it is the Great Wagon Road. The other 11 or 12 roads are not what others portray them to be, and I'm going to name the roads. Ridgeline Road, Matthew Moore's Road, Morgan Bryant Road, Buffalo Meeting House Road, Virginia Road, Scales Road, Town Fork Road, Shoals Road, Hollow Road, and Gist Road are completely different routes heading in different locations. Over time, Piedmont, I will put on the Piedmont Trails website as we get further into this, parcels, land deeds, surveys, and other reference material that can vouch for the statement that I just made. More about these roads and others in Stokes County are on the schedule for this week with the Piedmont Trails podcast. I'm going to be going into more detail about the importance of these early roads And why did they enter into Stokes County? Now, there were a few other roads that came in from present-day Carroll County, Virginia, entering into Surrey County. And there was actually a road coming into present-day Wilkes County. So you can't just I don't want to take away the importance of the Great Wagon Road and how it influenced so many families in traveling and migrating during those years, but there were other routes. Okay. So more details about the Stokes County roads will be coming up on a podcast this week. First, one of the most important things is believe in yourself and believe in your research capabilities. And I can't stress this enough. If you're listening to tonight's live stream, you already have within you a natural talent to research. You want to know. You want to know more about this road. You want to know if your ancestors traveled it. And you want to know how you can find out. So you have a natural talent to research and locate those materials. Use it. Lean on it. Believe in yourself. You can find those records. We're here to help you, but you can find those records. Like I said, believe in yourself and your research abilities when digging deeper into these roads and the links connecting you to your 18th century ancestors. I'm going to name a few things that I didn't want to leave out about the tavern keepers. There are many in Pennsylvania, and they have a lot of records up there for you guys to research. Rita says, I love you. Rita, she says, I love your presentations. I need to spend time on the website to learn more about my Owens and Lewis ancestors traveling through Virginia. Ooh, lots of Owens. I was working on Owens about 2.5 weeks ago, I think. Ran across some very interesting information about them. But yes, you do. Dig into those records on a ground level, Rita. Contact those local historical organizations and ask them what records do they have, and may you have access to them. Don't ask them to interpret it for you, but ask them if there's any way that you could get a copy. They have a lot in Virginia. But anyway, getting back to Pennsylvania, when it comes to tavern records, they're number one on the list that hold the most historical records of early taverns that document people who were traveling. Bill says from Traders Ford over Yadkin River just north of Salisbury through Cabarrus County into Charlotte on Tryon Street. I can show you. Yes, this, Bill, what I was saying earlier, this is the area going from Salisbury where the Great Wagon Road and the Traders Path joined together. They joined together and made one road. Around, you've got ferry records. I was going to name one, Watkins Ferry, who was a very long living ferry who does have records dating from the 18th century. Wouldn't it be amazing for you guys to find ferry records where you know the actual date of when your ancestor crossed the river, say the Potomac River? Wouldn't that be amazing? There are also store ledgers, and we had written an article a while back about Hickey's Ordinary and Hickey's Store, talking about John Hickey there in southern Virginia. There are lots of other ordinaries and inns that were operated all throughout Virginia. Some of the records can be scarce, very limited. A lot of the material didn't survive, but there is documentation if you take a time to look. You just never know. It may contain information about your family. Oh, Bill said Viper Tavern site also. Yep, excellent. There's many. Now, as the road moved through North Carolina, once you get into Salisbury, and Salisbury is a very historical town, and it holds a lot of records, early records. And they had, I think we did several segments on Piedmont Trails on video and in articles about early inns, early taverns, blacksmiths, attorneys. There's all kinds of records, store ledgers, all kinds. There's church records, all kinds. Someone asked me the other day, they said, Carol, what do you do about a particular church that just refuses to let you go through the records? I can name 4 or 5 right now, churches who are denying access to me for their historical records. They have that right to do that. One is a Lutheran church that is located near Brushy Fork in Davidson County that they just they will not let me see those. I can't put my hands on those actual records. Now they have went through them after I asked them very nicely, um, would they please do that? They looked for a particular name for me, but they're very reluctant in letting me actually go through the records. Now, some churches are more than willing for you to do that. They would love to share their history. They love for anyone to take up an interest and share it, and then entice others to, hey, tell your friends, come see us, and we'll let them go through our records. We'd love for them to do that. Newspaper archives used to, years ago when I was um, in my 20s and teenagers, you could go to my local newspaper in where the little town that I grew up, and you could just walk right in and you would say, I want to see the old newspapers. I want to go to the research room. And they just lead you upstairs. And there was tons of these old books. The newspaper had been in publication since the mid 19th century. And you could just grab a book from a particular year and week, a month, and just pull it out and just actually casually go through it. But then when the newspaper was sold to someone else, then um, you weren't able to do that anymore. The new owners did not want you to go through their volumes of historical data. But that's important for all of us to do. So you just have to, my advice to my friend was to just keep trying and don't give up. If you give up, then who succeeded? No one. And our main goal is to preserve the past for the future. And you're wanting to find the details out about the past of your ancestors so that you can pass that information on and to settle a thing within you of answering questions. I want to know why. And that would settle it. So if you quit and you give up, no one's going to succeed. So check the Tavern records. I hope if you have any questions or about anything that I said tonight, about the Trader's Path, Thigpen's Trace, or Great Wagon Road, or any of the other little Stokes County roads that I mentioned, just let me know. Contact me. You can contact me here through YouTube or visit PiedmontTrails.com. The website has a few updates. Now, the articles that I just read remnants of to you tonight, and I shared them, they will be updated by the end of this coming week, by this week. They will be updated, and it will have a clause in there due to what the Great Wagon Road Project has discovered. These above sentences that we originally published on the site are no longer true. And we will put sources and documents down there and reference points to share with you on why that is. All right, and then there are other updates that on the website. The migrations page has been updated, and the Colonial Indentured Servants Project has been updated. And I need to say something real quick before I forget it about the Colonial Servants Indentured Project. We recently discovered, I think it was a 3-page or 4-page list from a particular ship dated 1740 to 1742 that included over 500 during this particular time span of this ship, the history of this ship, over 500 names of indentured servants who traveled into the colonies at that time. And majority of them were under the age of 15. And I think I'm going to have to add to my project. And I don't know how I'm going to do this yet, but I've got to get together with the other members and figure out what we're going to do, because that's a vast amount of names of children. So I don't know quite what we're going to do yet. I don't think they need to be. There are several reasons why they don't need to be included on the indentured servants, because they never had a contract that I could find. And that's scary. So I have to dig deeper. But that's the latest updates with that. And we're going to be adding more names to the Colonial Indentured Service Project page this week again. So those are coming too. All right, and then we're going to launch the Yadkin Valley Railroad page. That's coming this week, and then there will be a new page that will hold all of our videos. I've been wanting to do that for a while. If you have materials that you want to submit to Piedmont Trails or share with Piedmont Trails about your family, or you may suspect an old roadbed, we deal with several surveying companies who, over the years, they had ran across remnants of an old road, and I can't tell you how many surveying companies we have dealt with since the Great Wagon Road project, came into existence. And you have to explore each and every one of these, because if you don't, then you may miss the opportunity of a lifetime. And it may be the discovery of a road that no one ever knew anything about. I can't tell you how many roads we have discovered in Kentucky alone that people just never, they just got lost through history. Our ancestors knew about them, I'm sure, but through time, they just became lost to history. There's nothing on them anymore. So if you have information, or you think that you may know the remnants of an old roadbed and you'd like to have more information about it, and you'd like to know how can you go about to find that information, get in touch with us. We'll be help you to guide you to the records. Each area is different in how records came about, of the land deeds and stuff. And land deeds are the most prime resource that we use in documentations of early roadbeds dating from, say, around 1770, then moving forward from there. Okay. And like I said, if you have materials, just let us know and get in touch with us. Our next live stream will be July 31st at 7:30 p.m. And I did want to share a book with you guys. Hold on, I've got to get it out of this little jacket here. I keep it in a little jacket. I want to hold it up. Okay. Now, you may can't see this very well, but what this little book is, I've had this for a very long time. This is a German to English translation dictionary book. And it was published in New York in 1897. And in fact, the little bookstore that originally sold it is imprinted in here, and it was called, and I can actually give you the address too, but it was Cox's Bookstore on 125th Street in New York. These things like this, with dealing with German records, I have a lot of family members who spoke German dialect. It was very imperative for me to have this many years ago when I was dealing deeper into their records. And things like that really, really help us along the way. A little purchase, a little gem, it's a little treasure that now I keep it protected in a little sleeve, but it's very priceless to me because of all of the records and documentations I've been able to transcribe on my own without having to have help or assistance from others. So that meant the world to me. Okay, so I don't see any more comments. I'm going to end it here. I want to thank you guys so much for listening to me tonight. I had to get some of this information out. It was important for me to do that. And it was important for me to correct some information. I'm sure I'll hear about it tomorrow, but it's well worth the journey. All right. Until next time on July 31st at 7:30 p.m., I want you to enjoy your journey to the past, and God bless.